Thanks. Welcome to this week's edition of the Rock and Roll Ghost podcast. We welcome for the third time. No one else has appeared on the show twice yet, but here we have Andrew Baird, filmmaker extraordinaire, with his new film Sunrise, which is in theaters now, with Alex Pettyfer and Guy Pearce. Andrew, very happy to have you on here. I'm glad you're doing well.
Hey, Brett.
Let's talk
Nice to see you again.
Sunrise.
Sure, man. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah, let's keep it going. A movie a year.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. We'll talk every time. I'm happy.
For sure.
I'm happy for people that want to actually come back on. So.
No, it's good. You get some really good interviewers or interviewees or whatever it's called. So okay, so
tell us about Sunrise, because it's out in theaters. I know it's playing in one theater in Chicago at the very least.
Is it really?
Yeah, I just kind of looked up the title and it showed showtimes, but it's in, let's just say it's in a sketchy neighborhood.
Interesting. Well, I was fortunate. It's playing in a great theater in LA called the Lumiere in Beverly Hills.
Okay.
So that's really nice. We went to see it on Friday, and it's really nice theater, I have to say.
Yeah.
I know AMC, it's playing in the AMC chain of theaters. I don't know how many and what cities, but it's it's a limited release, like a lot of these movies are, and it's probably like 12 or 15 cities across the US.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, various territories released them theatrically. Like One Way got released quite extensively in Japan for some reason.
Yeah.
Theatrically, they get released in the Middle East. Sometimes, I'm not sure what the UK Ireland deal on this is, but sometimes they get released in the UK and Ireland, which is a same market for movie sales.
Yeah.
And when we spoke last, you reminded me before the interview that I had mentioned, I dropped that Guy was doing this. I was doing this movie with Guy. Is that right?
Yeah. That's correct.
Cool. So
well, it wasn't that much of a surprise. You had worked with him on Zone 414.
Yeah.
Worked with Travis Fimmel twice on Zone and then One Way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to work with Alex again. We got on really good. And
that's cool.
I think he's great. The couple of times I've talked or messaged Kevin Bacon about a couple of things.
Yeah.
That haven't worked out yet. But
cool.
I worked with Alwyn Fuere twice, because Alwyn was in Zone, and she's in this. She plays Guy's mom.
All right.
Reynolds' mom, Ma Reynolds. So it was really good working with Guy a second time. He's incredible, And then Alex and he had done a movie together before.
Okay.
Called Infernal Machine, and but Alex had done a very small role. I think he was there for a day or two. He had about 2 scenes or something. Whereas this time, Alex is the primary lead, but Guy's got a pretty heavy role, pretty extensive role, and then we have this wonderful Chinese actress who's based in London called Crystal Yu, and then a whole bunch of but she brings a lot. I think she did well.
Well, the trailer's really cool.
Great, yeah. The trailer's really cool. Have you seen the movie?
No, I haven't seen the movie. No.
Oh wow, interesting.
No.
Interesting.
Like I said, it's only playing in the one theater, so it's a little hard to get to.
I know, and it's worth seeing it on the big screen. It's had a great DP, Ivan Abel, from New York. He's originally from Slovakia, and we shot in New York. He's based in New York, and we shot a music video, maybe a couple, in New York years ago. He's brilliant.
Yeah.
This is his first movie.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, he's really. But you know what they say, the Eastern European DPs are great, and it's true. They're incredible. He's really amazing. Yeah.
I remember I saw an old episode of Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown when went back to Hungary with Vilmos Sigmund,
Yeah,
which was
yeah,
really cool. Vilmos is no longer with us, unfortunately, but he, I forgot like his whole career. He basically started taking photographs during Hitler's,
yeah,
rise, and before
yeah,
he got out of Germany, got out of Hungary,
yeah.
um, which is pretty crazy.
Hungary is great. I used to live there. Before I
Yeah.
came to America, I was in Hungary, and I just I like the sound of Budapest. So I just
Yeah.
went there to do to
Well, it's
plan
supposed to
this.
be a lovely city.
It's amazing. I love it, and it's gone. When I went there in 2005, it was still pretty. Um, it was like they had just come into the EU. The Russians only left 15 years prior,
Yeah.
and they were still like movies were coming in. Um, like Jonathan Pryce, who I'd worked with, was doing a movie there with the director. The very first movie I ever worked on was directed by John Irvin,
Okay.
and called Widow's Peak. And John was there directing this movie with Jonathan Pryce, who I'd worked on a Roger Corman movie with as an art director years prior, and a young English actor at the time who became very close, Rupert Friend, who's now blown up. And so they were doing these kind of Euro. They did what were they doing back then? They were doing Disney were doing some movies there, and they had these big forts. And Roger Corman wanted me to do a movie there, like a spiders movie,
Okay.
horror movie with Christopher Lee, and the budget was too small to facilitate the script. But anyway, I spent a lot of time there trying to work that out. And I went to Romania to try and figure that out as well. But I actually now, after the next movie I'm doing called Cape Point, the movie after that's going to be a spy movie, and it's set up in Budapest, to shoot in Budapest, and
Nice.
also Istanbul. That's what I
Yeah.
want to do, because at the moment it's got a Russian lean on it, and we're going to pull that back because it's not great for sales at the moment. It's centered
Right.
in the Secret Service in Hungary. So it's a good script. It's based on a book. It's cast. So anyway, that's after this next movie I'm doing in South Africa, which is a survival movie.
Do you expect to film both of those this year?
Well, the spy movie should be done in the winter time, so right at the end of the year, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna do the post on the survival movie in the UK, in London.
Yeah.
So then I could very easily prep the spy movie in Hungary, like base it out of Budapest, and then I'd like to do a chunk in Istanbul, because I went there the year before last to consult on a TV show from a filmmaker buddy of mine from the Lebanon.
Okay.
Spy show. It's actually on Netflix, called The Deep State.
Okay.
In the US. Yeah, in the
I'll
US.
have to check
I don't
that
know
out.
whether it's I couldn't believe it, but they sold it to Netflix, and
Yeah.
it was made for Kuwait, and it just popped. They sold it to Netflix, and it's on Netflix US, so it could
Okay.
be Netflix Global. I have a feeling Netflix bought it outright for the world, outside of because it was financed by a Kuwaiti streamer called Shasha. Anyway, so I spent about a month in Istanbul. It's all over Istanbul, Kuwait, Beirut, and Cuba.
Okay.
So, anyway, why am I saying that? Well, once I went to Istanbul, I was like, oh my God, this place is incredible. And also
Yeah.
it's the spy mecca of the world, and it's
Yeah.
really inexpensive. So South Africa, ever since the strikes, sorry, not ever since, but the strikes have only increased the desire not to shoot in the United States. The
Okay.
value of UK actors have shot up
Yeah.
because now you can use non-SAG actors, or use non-SAG because everything, the fringes and everything are so expensive that it's just like it's like property, it's like accommodation, it's just become unworkable, you know, and it's all well and good to fight over all this stuff for the people at the top, but the people at the bottom or in the middle are just getting squeezed out because it's so prohibitively expensive to shoot in the United States, you know, which is sad, you know.
But it works differently if you're hiring, say, American actors for a production not in America.
What do you mean?
Well, meaning that you could get actors from America for roles, but they don't. But because you film outside of America, is that less?
No, there still has to be SAG, so it's only if they're like
Okay.
part of equity or something that, you know, you can use that. It's a whole, look, it's the same in anywhere, like even in Los Angeles, it costs more than anywhere to shoot. And people are always trying to figure out ways to always. And I used to do lots of advertising here, and that's what they would do. You know, they would always looking for ways to circumvent. So the more rules and regulations you put in, the more people are trying to find ways to circumvent them, because it's like $400,000 a day to shoot in Los Angeles. $400,000 a day. To do a commercial here. I don't know if maybe, and I suppose then if you're doing like a major studio movie, like they did Beverly Hills Cop 4 here recently, that's like 400. I mean, if you say they shoot for 100 days, at $400,000 a day, so that's $40 million.
Right.
Just to shoot it, just to shoot it. Then, you know, more than that probably, because I think they shot, I don't know, it's 100+ days. So, but you know, that's the game. It's crazy. You know?
Well, also just the way of the world right now, economically, everything's more expensive on top of it.
So South Africa is very, that my partners just did 2 movies there. One of them directed by a very good Hungarian director called Nimrod Antal.
I know who Nimrod is.
So, and then the other one was a Josh Duhamel movie, and they had a great time there, and it's really cost effective. It's just it's a long way to go. It's like 2 transatlantic flights, you know, from LA. But that's cool. And then Hungary, great cameramen, and now it's got massive infrastructure, and it's almost like it's become a little prohibitively expensive because it's so busy. They built a huge studio there called Corda.
Well, I remember talking to, oh my God, why am I blanking on his name? He did the 2 Bond films. He did GoldenEye, and he did Casino Royale.
Martin Campbell.
I was going to say Martin Atkins, but that's a musician. Martin Campbell. He filmed a movie, I believe, with Liam, who he works with. I think he's worked with a few times in Hungary. I remember when I was talking to him for one of his last movies that had Michael Keaton and I think Samuel Jackson. He was actually in Hungary prepping the Liam Neeson movie.
That's cool.
At the time.
I think he did a movie called Memory.
That might be
Millennium,
the one.
maybe, because I saw it at a screening there last 2022 here. I was here, and Guy is in it, Guy Pearce.
Okay,
and Monica Bellucci, and it was it Millennium, and Arthur Sarkisian was the producer. Anyway, so he did that. I didn't realize it was shot in Budapest, but then he's done another one. He's been working. He's been doing a bunch. He was one of the best Bond directors, and my half brother worked with him on Casino Royale.
Okay.
He cut Casino Royale, Stuart.
Stuart did,
And then my niece Kate, who's Stuart's daughter, is going to cut my next movie in London.
That's awesome.
Cape Point, so she's good. We worked together on a video years ago, a music video for The Weekend.
Oh wow!
Which got me my first movie. It got me Zoe.
Very cool.
So, Martin Campbell's really super director.
He's made a lot of really good movies, and he's kind of he's kind of been pushed out of the big Hollywood tent poles, but now
Man,
he's
you know
you
what,
know
man? It's
doing
like
what he can.
Rennie Harlan's doing a renaissance. He's just done 3 Stranger movies, The Lionsgate. He had The
Yeah.
Bricklayer come out with Millennium. You know, he was in
It-
China, you know. So was Simon West. Simon West, who just did a movie called Old Guy with Christoph Waltz, right in parallel to me doing this in Belfast.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
have the same manager. He's got another movie coming out as well with Rebel Wilson. He's, you know, and then Martin Campbell, he just did Dirty Angels with Eva Green, who he worked from Bond, and what's the ladies, Ruby Rose, and a bunch. So he's done that, and I think, yeah, he's been busy, you know.
Yeah.
Because they did Martin and Stewart did a movie that really killed Martin for a while called Green Lantern.
Yeah.
That really ruined him for a while because that's not so. And then he came back with
Edge of Darkness.
Foreigner.
The
Edge of
Foreigner did
Darkness
well.
was before Green Lantern. So
right, it was. You're right.
So they did The Foreigner with Jackie Chan and Pierce Brosnan, and it did well, and it was good. It was anyway. So he's really good. But the 2 Bonds he did, GoldenEye with Pearce and
Are easily the 2
Casino
of the best
Royale.
Bond films. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, he's yeah. I mean, really, and I remember going to see GoldenEye in London. And I'm from Dublin, I'm Irish, so to see an Irish guy playing James Bond.
Yeah.
And I was close to doing a movie with Pearce. Maybe we'll do something down the road, but I told him that it was like to come out. I can't remember. I think I was about 18, 19 at the time, and it's like, holy shit. I mean, he really pulled it off. Pearce pulled it off. Martin Campbell. It was just, it reinvented the franchise. Not reinvented, but reinvigorated the franchise completely.
And he did that twice.
Exactly. And then Casino Royale was really top of the line. And then Stewart went on and did, with Sam Mendes, he did Skyfall, which is one of the best Bonds.
Right.
I really liked Skyfall. I didn't like the last Bond at all. I thought it was way too.
No Time to Die.
Yeah, no.
I liked it. I liked a lot of it.
Man. If I had a choice, if somebody said, give you a choice, you can win an Oscar or do a Bond movie, I'll be like, I'll do a Bond movie any day.
Yeah.
I grew up on those. My dad was English, so I grew up on Roger Moore, and then I remember watching one. He said, "Oh, there's a new Bond movie on, or it's on TV," and then I'm watching the movie. I said, "Who's this guy?" "Oh, that's Sean Connery, the original Bond." I'm like, but I grew up on Roger Moore.
Yeah. Same with me too.
Yeah, they're great movies, and it's great that they're. Well, we'll see. We'll see who they cast as the new Bond. You know.
Yeah, I'm very curious.
I tell you,
there's a lot of.
I tell you, Alex Pettyfer would make a super James Bond.
Yeah.
He's still young. He's only 33, but like, he'd be great, man. He's really impressive. He really is. He's got all the things you need to be like, he's very talented, instinctive, looks great, great charisma, very smart. So that's why I think he succeeded so young.
Yeah.
But I think he's getting, like, as he matures, he's getting better, you know, with more depth or whatever. We had a really good time on Sunrise. We really broke it down and used the material as a blueprint. But when we were in the scenes, you know, we changed them. We made it work, you know, in the moment, because it needed that. And I was lucky, as I have been with all the movies, to have a lot of freedom creatively. There's been a lot of practical limitations off, but creatively, I'm kind of given free rein. So part of that is because I'm involved in the production, which is kind of how it works with me. So, and then having Alex and Guy work together was wonderful.
Yeah.
And because the way, and then Alwyn, I always loved. I didn't say this in other interviews, but we literally would say we had like 5 hours to shoot a scene. I would spend easy half that time just working the scene with the actors without rolling.
Right.
And everyone is like, is he, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, but that's what I did on this movie. It needed it, and I still shot the movie in a very, very prudent amount of time, but it just worked. The material needed it, and the actors needed it, because we didn't have any time to do read-throughs or whatever. But now, to be quite honest, these read-throughs and rehearsals and all this carry on can be prohibitive, I think. You know, what's not prohibitive is making sure the material is as tight as it can be. So I've really worked hard on this next movie with the script.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to read through the script again after this interview. And there's work to be done on the spy movie, because the male lead disappears in the second act and it doesn't work. I need to bring him back in. But the more movies I make, the more I'm involved with the scripts, which is essential, because the editorial at the end and the writing at the beginning,
Yeah.
this is where, you know, and we spent 5 months editing Sunrise, because a lot of stuff had to be worked out. And I think we did a good job considering, but there was still several narrative threads that should have been further developed. And, you know, there was just so many different hands on it by the time it got to me, that it was a process of cleaning it, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, so not just with me, but with the actors as well, you know.
Yeah. Well, for example, with this, and I don't know how much you could actually say about this because of how these rules are, but you had mentioned before we did officially started the interview that it kind of had been gone through, you know, numerous hands before. How many I guess revisions would you say there were by the time you got to it?
I have no idea. I have
Yeah.
no idea.
Do you have
I
access to
just-
see some of those do you get to see the
yeah.
first one that started everybody's interest?
No, because I think they lost track. As I said, I was very close to doing a movie with, I took over a movie that Pierce Brosnan was going to do.
Yeah.
And then Pearce left, and I contacted him and we chatted, and he kind of conditionally came back in based on the script, being worked. It's the same thing. The writer that we proposed to work with, and it was all on a call, ended up not doing it, but we couldn't get the script there, you know. Funnily enough, I ended up doing a polish with the writer Ronan, who did Sunrise.
Okay.
And it was solid, but it wasn't of the same DNA as the other writer. So it was a very big Hollywood writer, and who had come in to do a character polish for Pearce, and those pages were wonderful, but then we had to fit it back into this.
That's the key with I guess what you call script doctoring, is that it really requires somebody to look at the material, find that voice, speak in that voice, but amplify it.
Yeah, and it was a good idea, but it was a very weak script. I'm talking about this movie called Youth, okay? And it was about a couple who decided to de-age. Okay, take a pill, go through a process of de-aging. It works on the wife, it doesn't work on the husband.
Yeah.
She goes back to 25 years of age, and he skyrockets. He, you know, gets older. Yeah. And it's a tragic love story, and it's beautiful. And there's some great moments in there. And this script doctor came in and really created a great character for Pearce.
Yeah.
Then it couldn't fit it into it was set up as a sci-fi thriller, and it really wasn't that. It was more like a mature love story. And that's what Pearce wanted. That's what I wanted. And then, but it had been financed and sold as a thriller. So this is all these things that you go against.
So that doesn't make any damn sense. How
I know.
You can
So
start
then
out
it's
one
like,
way and then be turned.
This is what happens all the time.
Yeah.
People don't talk about this stuff. It's like, you know, but yet Pearce was the reason it was getting financed. But then I agree, it was to go in this much more character drama based, like that Bill Nighy movie. I can't remember anyway.
Oh,
So
living?
maybe, yeah, and it was like, and then the financiers are like, oh no, we want a sci-fi thriller. It's like, that's not gonna happen with Pearce. It's never gonna happen. It's
Yeah,
not, it's
yeah.
not, and it's not gonna happen with me either, because it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I don't think he's probably interested in doing like action.
It's not
films.
about the type of movie. It's
Yeah.
about what's authentic to the idea.
Right.
What's best for the idea. And
Well, it's
the
obvious
yeah.
he bought on to something one way too.
Well, the idea was good, and his wife
Yeah.
liked the idea, and then he
Yeah.
got involved, and then they financed it, and then he's like, well, I need my work, my character needs work, and then
Yeah,
so
yeah.
be it. So who knows? I mean, it's that thing is still out there. It's my, but you know, who knows? It's like, but that had gone through various things, like Sunrise.
Yeah.
Even One Way had had another director who'd worked heavily on the script with the writer.
Yeah.
Zone had nobody, I don't think. It was just as is. But this is what happens with these. The movie I'm doing next was the same thing. That had 2 writers.
Yeah.
It was cast, they didn't finance it, and now I rewrote it and it's financed, and it's just the way these things go. And
Yeah.
it's but the script is crucial, like, and in terms of, but again, when you can send a script out and you get guys, say, or whatever.
Right.
Not, this didn't happen, but he
No, just an example.
but they can make notes. I've got notes on this, like Pearce on you. I've got notes, and so begins a process maybe of change, you know. And because those actors, Guy Pearce playing Reynolds is one thing.
Right.
You could get Mel Gibson to play Reynolds. You could get Brendan Gleeson to play Reynolds.
Right.
These will all be different interpretations of this character, because they are their own. Like, you can have different directors do the movie.
Yeah.
So there's a certain, it's like cooking, you know, you might have all the ingredients, but then do they go together? You know,
Right.
Most of the time there's issues, because that's what happens, you know. Most movies don't quite fully get all the way.
Right.
And on that rare occasion, they sing, you know, they really are. Often there's some great moments, but there's some weak moments or whatever. It's just the way it is, you know. It's such a complex craft, and it requires so many different elements. And then it's that point, that clear point of view that you want to have. But the bottom line is, I always like take kind of encouragement from like Ridley Scott, where he says, fuck the reviews.
Yeah.
You have to know that you've made a good movie, that you've done well. And I'm, you know, based on what we had and how I worked with Guy, Alex, Crystal, Super, and all the younger cast, Alwyn, etc.
Yeah.
I think we've delivered. Everyone's happy. And with a lot of practical considerations to, you know, and I think it's an interesting piece of work. It's got its issues, but I think it's interesting, and it's got a weight to it. And I just approached it like the vampire element, because I was presented to me, the reference was Near Dark, the Catherine Bigelow movie.
Yes.
And funnily enough, one of the reviewers at Roger Ebert said, oh, it reminds us of one of the best vampire movies of all time, Near Dark, which is quite a compliment.
Yeah.
Then went on to negate other aspects, but so be it. But so that's how it began. I remember Near Dark, and that was very kind of 90s grunge, and then it was like Crow, and I was like, one of my favorite movies, The Crow. But in fairness, it's interesting that the reviewer said that, because I felt it progressed on from that into a much more kind of art house sort of stripped down kind of meditation on loss. And this guy so the vampirism is just a metaphor for addiction.
Yeah.
So the guy goes through a tremendous tragedy, which kind of opens him up to addiction, and then he's got to go through this process of recovery, you know. So that's how I approach the character. Alex and I saw eye to eye on that. Alex didn't want to be jumping around with fangs, any of that nonsense, you know. And I think the reviews are mixed, because some people expect the standard blah blah blah, whatever it is, vampire tropes. But then I got criticized for Zone for being too similar to one thing, and you can never please all the people all the time. It's not my intention. My intention is, have I delivered a piece of work in the circumstances that is valid, authentic, and sincere? And I have, you know. I mean, there's definitely, but I would admit that there's a couple of narrative threads I would have liked to have removed, but and I tried to, but I just couldn't. I won't say what they were.
Right.
It just was unnecessary to the story, you know, which kind of then, because you've got so many narrative threads going on, it pulls the momentum back, you know.
Yeah.
But again, it's a slow burn movie. It's not like One Way, which was like, you know, more like it just builds and builds and builds and builds. The next movie's like that. It's tension, tension, tension.
Right.
This was much more of like a poetic kind of piece, and more non-linear, you know. So
what it feels like, a comparison, and again, I haven't seen the film, but a comparison could be made based on the way you're describing it, basically more towards The Hunger by Tony Scott than it would be any traditional vampire film.
Yeah, I mean, look, I haven't, The Hunger I haven't seen in a long time.
And that's a completely different movie in terms of tone, but the way you're describing the fact that you're going for more of an artistic direction than a horror.
Yeah, it's funny, like they slammed The Hunger when it came out.
Oh, sure.
And like they do, and that now it's a cult classic. There's a review on Rotten Tomatoes that said, "Oh, this movie is going to be a cult classic," which is cool. And I haven't seen it in a long time, but it was a real cool. I'm talking about The Hunger, Catherine Deneuve and David Bowie, and it was like high point of MTV, and or the start of MTV really. And but I mean, I got compared to Tony Scott on One Way, which was like, wow, it's so cool. I mean, he's such the two of them together, Tony and Ridley are.
I miss Tony a lot.
And they were so different in their style. Well, I don't know. They were just amazing.
There was there's a lot of similarity there, but in terms of, I think, their approach, I think Ridley was always going for a higher sort of, in terms of art, and Tony was more about the guts of it, the momentum. Sometimes he got artsy fartsy, but most of the time he was. I mean, I just watched Revenge again for the first time, and I don't know how. And that movie's better now than I remember it being then, and I loved it then.
And it got roasted back then.
Oh, and it bombed. It bombed terribly too.
Yeah, and then one of my favorites. One of my favorites is Man on Fire.
That's another good one.
Last Boy Scout that Stewart did a polish on. It was kind of clumsy, you know, the movie, whatever it was, but I love it. But the thing the movie I think I went to see more than any other movie in the theater is True Romance.
Yeah.
Anyway, with those guys from where they were from, like Northern England, right?
Yeah.
So coming to Hollywood, right, to make like cigarette commercials and like Porsche commercials and stuff. The Brits were like, ew, you know, they just look down on them and think they're like, you know, subpar, you know, they were just, there was such a snobbishness, you know, and but they led the charge of the British commercial directors who were incredible. That doesn't exist anymore. You know,
I mean, that's a generation of filmmakers that doesn't get discussed,
and
like
the guys
like
that were making
70s.
commercials back then were making like really incredible little movies. And the last time they did that were in the 90s with like Michael Bay, Antoine Fuqua, that they were doing interesting MTV, you know. Now it's just nonsense, you know. It's very hard to, they don't look to commercials for directors anymore, except on a rare occasion. The guy who did Beverly Hills Cop was one of the very best, and that's about, there's very few people who they look on advertising anymore, because it's become such a committee of, you know, 20 creatives trying to direct a car commercial.
You'll never see a 1984 style commercial for Apple by Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott didn't even know what Apple was, you know. He didn't care. He's just making a little movie. So anyway, those guys. So listen, The Hunger, I'll watch it again, but again, I had no interest in making a vampire movie. So I suppose I have been and will continue to be criticized for not adhering to certain. I don't give a shit. I don't.
But if you follow the traditional vampire story, you'd say, well, there's just another traditional vampire movie.
Exactly. See, it doesn't matter. See,
critics don't matter to me. Critics, there is no film critic I read anymore. Once Roger Ebert died, I stopped caring about film critics.
Ridley Scott said that he framed the review of Pauline Kael about Blade Runner. It's in his office. Slamming it, you know, saying it's the worst fucking thing ever. And now it's like absolute
it's
iconic
a classic.
Classic across the board. Best science fiction movie ever made, or one like way up. 2001 got slammed. Most of Kubrick's movies, Barry Lyndon got slammed. Eyes Wide Shut got slammed. People forget that when these things come out, they're like, okay, it's just shit all over them. Most of Tony Scott's movies got slammed. Most of them. Domino, I really liked. That got destroyed. I really liked it. I like all of the least favorite of my movies of Tony Scott was Top Gun. I can see that. I wasn't into the planes, and there was a story where he was with Jerry Bruckheimer and Don Simpson, and he had to go whitewater rafting with them. They were to get to know you, but again, The Hunger gets slammed,
right?
But because of that movie,
right,
there was something in it. There was like, this guy's interested, and he's commercial, you know, he's hot commercial director. Let's get him. Let's talk to him about Top Gun. Oh yeah, he'd done a Saab commercials. That had planes in them. That was the thing that caught.
Simpson and Bruckheimer really wanted somebody hungry that could shoot
they said
on a certain budget.
They're going down. They're doing this rafting, really dangerous rafting, and they got him to do. I can't remember. I think he had to jump out of the raft or some shit. And he said, if you do this, you got the job, and he did it. You know. And you know, that's the kind of. And look, now it's like this classic movie. So
I will say the original Top Gun, I've seen that in the sequels. The original is 100% better than the sequel, which I thought was just.
I saw the sequel. I actually went and saw it. I don't know why we kept going on and on about it, but
it's the story is thinner than the first film, and the first film story is really thin.
Interesting. I mean, I don't know what it was. It just never really engaged me.
No.
It was the first movie of Tony Scott's that I loved was Beverly Hills Cop 2. I thought, I mean, it's different, very different.
And that got slammed a lot because it was more action than comedy. But looking back on it now, it's. I mean, I liked it then. I like it now. I forgot about it for a while, but I mean, with Tony, you always go back to his work.
So Hunger, Beverly Hills Cop 2, Revenge, Man on Fire,
Days of Thunder,
Crimson
Tide might
was
be
well received.
And it was a hit.
And True Romance was well received, but nothing like what it.
True Romance. Nobody went and saw that.
No, it didn't make any money.
No one went and saw that movie.
I know.
I got
it's like a classic.
I got the pleasure of meeting Tony. He presented the director's cut that November of the year it was released at the Chicago Art Institute for a screening. I got to meet him, and it was one of the biggest honors of my life to be able to see that cut, which nobody got to see again you know, for like a decade until it came out on DVD.
I think honestly, it's kind of like with fashion or advertising or music, even with the videos back in the day when they were making a lot of them. The test of time is look back in 5 years, 10 years, and look at that work. Has it degenerated or improved?
Right.
And his body of work is improved.
Yeah.
But you look at like these fucking nonsense that they play at some of these festivals, you know?
Yeah.
And you look back and it's just like, that's garbage. Why did that get, why? Because it was a political thing. It wasn't about cinema. It wasn't about filmmaking. It was about politics. It was about, you know, so quality work improves over time. It stands the test of time, and poor work doesn't. It's that simple. I mean, yeah, it's the funny thing as well. Like when I worked with The Weeknd, he was really anxious to work with me, eager to work with me, and I didn't know who he was at the time, and then it was like, oh, he's a brilliant artist, but he wanted to change certain things with the video, and it was conceptually, I knew weren't going to work, like narrative stuff, and then when it didn't work, he wanted to just hack it to pieces, and he'd done it before on several things, on several videos.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't going to stand by that. So I kind of stood by my own. I regret that because he's a great guy, Abel, and he's a brilliant artist, and he's such a film buff.
Yeah.
And I saw like the show that he just had come out didn't do well, but now he's got a movie. He's amazing. It'd be great to try and I tried to, when I was doing Zone, re-engage with his manager Sal and his creative director Lamar and see if they do some music for Zone, just from a collaborative point of view. But anyway, what happened is my director's cut went out and then they got upset about that because, anyway, they got upset. I was told it was okay to release it, and the writer saw it of Zone and sent me the Zone script, and that's how I got my first movie, because it was really good script, you know. I mean, it's these 12-page monologues or dialogues between two actors in a room, but it read really great, and it was anyway. So you kind of stick to your guns, right?
Yeah.
Good, bad, or indifferent, you know. It's your point of view as the filmmaker that stands. But I do collaborate a lot, you know.
Is it difficult, like in that case, with somebody like The Weeknd, who's a huge star, to push back on something?
You see, advertising and music videos, commercials, you're at service. It's like television.
Yeah.
If you're a director of episodic, or if you're doing a sequel for a studio or whatever it is, you're of service.
Yeah.
You're being hired to service a song. Now, if you're Mark Romanek or whatever, you're going to be given autonomy to some degree.
Yeah.
But it's like at the end of the day, musicians, and I worked with, you know, Machine Gun Kelly in one way, they have a mentality it goes against filmmaking, you know?
Yeah.
It's just a musician and a filmmaker, they're two different brains, you know?
Yeah.
Even a musician and an actor. And Coulson is a very good actor. It's like Alex. He's got all the stuff, but his musician brain is punk rock and crazy. And it's like, so it's very tricky to combine music and film.
Yeah.
Very tricky. But like The Hunger is a case in point again. You get like an iconic rock star like David Bowie, who was a decent, solid actor. Sting was a decent, solid actor.
Right.
But incomparable to their brilliance as musical artists, right? Mick Jagger, you know.
Yeah.
Roger Daltrey was a good actor. Coulson is a very good actor.
Yeah.
I was attracted to him because of his acting, not his music. Very good actor.
Yeah.
Very good actor. So it's just he's so taken up by the music. So
Well, you have to, you kind of like, there's very few people who could be good at multiple types of creative things.
Yeah, in my
At the
opinion,
same
Coulson,
level.
yeah, my opinion, Coulson's a better actor than he is a musical artist, in my opinion. Although he's, just before he went to do One Way, you did a great song performance on Saturday Night Live, and it was an incredible
Right.
song. So I don't know, he's super talented, but that music brain and the actor's brain,
Yeah.
that's just hard stuff. You
Right.
know,
There are very few true Renaissance people.
Yeah,
A lot of people like to think themselves as Renaissance just because they like doing, they like painting and they like recording music. It doesn't
Yeah.
a true, you have to be great at something, you have to be great at it, and there's very few people that can go across
Yeah.
that whole spectrum.
And the thing as well is, like, with someone like Guy, he's just a great actor. He's a
Yeah.
great film actor.
Yeah.
Actually, I saw that Alex was asked, would he ever go on stage? He said, never.
Yeah.
Too afraid. So Alex is, but they just have that thing, same. Coulson has that thing. You put a camera on them.
Yeah.
And not with a plainer role, they can do it. They have that thing.
Yeah.
It's a multitude of things. It's not like, it's just this magic, and very different to being a theater actor. Very different.
Yeah.
Very different. And so why am I saying this?
I forgot how I was asking about pushing
because
back.
Guy just wants to be like an actor. He's an actor. So when those guys, they're all about character.
Yeah.
They want to make sure that their characters are good. That's what they're interested in. They're not looking at the overall,
right,
per se. So, and I think that was with Sunrise. It was like, look, we had Fallon, this man with no name, suffered this tragedy, fell into this addiction, has to come through it. We've got Reynolds, this kind of demigod, this sort of like evil in human form, representative of this family and this town and this community that's just run on fear and hatred. And it's quite relevant to today and anywhere in the world. So
yeah.
But these are strong characters, like big characters. And then you've got the less showy character of Yan Loi, the Chinese woman who's lost her husband. And that's the much more humble, subtle, but really grounded character. And Crystal did a great job on that. And again, there's a big monologue at the end, or at the end of the second act, that she rewrote because she's Chinese and she was able to bring her own experiences of going from China to England and all of that. And, so actors always are thinking about character. It's up to the filmmaker to think about the overall. Right. But I think, as the guy said, particularly Alex, because he was the real collaborator with me on because Fallon required a lot of revising as a character. In the script, he was doing a lot in the original script, there was a lot of talking and it's like, this guy is meant to be like a mythical character. So, and I think we achieved that, and what we set out to do as an overall piece, and as a tonal piece. Does it have the act 1, 2, and 3 drive? No, it goes a bit off that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how it gets received in France and whatever, other mark in Europe and stuff. Because it's not a standard 3-act piece at all. It's got a Western slant to it. It's got a folk horror slant to it. It's a drama. It's got the family element. It's just a lot of things going on in it.
Yeah.
And it's got a couple of, maybe one story narrative thread that was unnecessary, but I just couldn't remove it in the time.
Yeah.
So, So, but I mean, the tone of it and the world of it, the flavor of it, I think is really potent and distinctive. And Northern Ireland was such a asset to the movie. I mean, it was set, it was written it was set in Northern Ireland originally.
Okay.
And it was written like 18 years ago, I believe, shortly after the Troubles, the ceasefire happened.
Yeah.
So I think it's a bit of a response to that, you know, growing up in that environment. And then it got moved to the US because it's more commercially viable as a piece, which it is, you know. But then you just find the common traits between like small town America, small town anywhere else in the world. And I think Northern Ireland provided a great environment for the movie, you know. We found this incredible forest, which then grounded the world of the movie. That was, I don't think that was in the original script, that the town was set around this. I don't think so. It's just, I found this forest. I said, I could create, I used to be a production designer like Ridley Scott. So I create worlds and I could say, oh, I can build this world around this forest. Because there was like literally a month before we shot, I remember Jib, my manager's a producer on the movie, said, listen, are you sure you want to keep this US base? Maybe we might need to revert to it being Northern Ireland because it's an added expense, you know, with the kind of this period of cars, the blah, blah. Said, no, I'm going to keep it. I'll find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
Because it costs more. And you're always in filmmaking trying to find less expensive, more cost efficient ways to do things. So, but I think we pulled it off very well, you know. I mean, what do you think? You're an American.
Well, I mean, I'm very eager as we discussed before, I haven't seen it yet. So
oh yeah, but you saw the trailer.
I saw the trailer. It does look, the trailer is very, I mean, it's very atmospheric. I love the look of it. So I'm very eager to see it. So maybe I'll take a little jaunt out to that one theater that's playing it near me.
Yeah, do it, man. I mean, it really is stunning on the big screen. And we got local composer, very talented guy, classically trained guy, Andrew Simon McAllister did the music. And most, like 95% of the people involved with, well, maybe not, let's say 85% of the people involved with making the movie across the board were from Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
So it's very much representative of not just what can be made there in terms of like as a production hub, but what generated out of there, the talent and stuff, you know. So it was the baby of Mark Huffins, who was the guy who brought Game of Thrones into Northern Ireland and just opened up the whole region, not just as a film, but the whole region, made it safe, people, big deal. And then he was doing Napoleon as we were doing this. So his kind of protege, Martin Brennan, took it over. And Martin and I had started with Zone, and we've done all these 3 movies together. And Northern Irish Screen supported it hugely. And but as I said, Mark and Martin had gone through at least a half a dozen filmmakers I know of, and various. Michael Fassbender wanted to play the role and direct the movie. Jamie Dornan wanted to play the role. Kit Harington at one stage was interested in the role. Jason Momoa was interested in the role. It generated interest, you know. It generated because it was and I feel the strongest thing about the movie is its originality. You can't categorize it. It's not a horror movie. It's not a Western. It's not a vampire movie. It's not a drama. It's a combo of all different things. And as you said before, I got heavily criticized on Zone for it being too like something else and being too. It's like you can never win. You can only do what's true to you. And I never thought making Zone because I didn't know at the time. I was used to short form work going out there and being criticized, but not a movie. But I never thought they'd just like jump and just like Blade Runner.
Yeah.
So, but you know what? It did 3 weeks in the top 10 on Netflix in the United States. So There you go.
Well,
And I already had Zone One Way in post,
yeah,
and then as One Way came out, it was getting negative. There's always people shit and
Yeah.
shit, and then it did well though, I think critically, and literally, I don't know, a month later I got Guy into Sunrise, because Sunrise was hard to cast, because
yeah,
it got to a point where people didn't want to play vampires, and that can change in the, I don't know. It's a tricky thing, casting movies. It's
yeah,
a skill, it's not just about the material, it's about the relationships, it's about how it's a real skill, casting movies, and it takes a team. It's not just a director, it's not
Right.
just a script. It
Right.
needs a producer or producers who have that are of reputation and like have good rapport with the reps and the managers, agents, etc. And it's a whole mixture of things,
Yeah. Did you?
Yeah.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
Well, that is the crucial element to making movies is the cast, getting those core name cast pieces.
Yeah.
Like with the next movie, I kept, oh, we don't need anyone. It finances itself. It's from the producer 47 meters down, blah, blah, blah. You always need somebody.
Yeah, yeah.
And we do need somebody. And now it's like, okay, it's a really strong piece, but then there's a thing out there. I don't want to do, like, it's got sharks in it. I don't want a shark movie. I don't want to do a vampire movie. Actors have their own.
Yeah.
So then, movies that are easy to finance and sell can be hard to cast. Movies that are easy to cast, or I always knew that I was going to get a really good actor to play Reynolds because of the material.
Yeah.
But you know what? It wasn't really hard to finance this movie.
Yeah.
So go ahead, but you're going to say.
Well, I was going to say, Zone, where did you film Zone 414?
Belfast.
Okay, so you've made two movies now in
One
Ireland.
in Belfast.
Yeah.
And Sunrise was shot all outside Belfast.
Is it really what does it mean to you to be able to film movies in your homeland?
Well, what's interesting is Northern Ireland is its own region, and it's still officially part of the UK. And yet I attribute my film career absolutely to Northern Ireland and Mark Huffam and Martin Brennan. But Mark gave legitimacy to Zone in relation to Guy, who we'd done Prometheus with, and Travis, who we'd done Raised by Wolves with. So Mark was instrumental. And then Northern Irish Screen gave some support on Zone. They gave huge support on Sunrise because it was their own thing.
Yeah.
So from a guy who'd never even been to Northern Ireland or been to Belfast until I went there to shoot Zone, because I wouldn't go there because it's like the Troubles and
Yeah.
So it's Northern Ireland who supported me, whereas down south with the government there and the film body there, they're very unsupportive. And yet I did two post-productions. I did Zone and One Way fully posted in Dublin at Windmill Lane, who were amazing.
Yeah.
And they're incredibly supportive, but it was every time we asked for some it was what's it called, Screen Ireland, they would just, oh no, we don't want to support this, it's like some excuse or some, it's sad,
Yeah.
So I've shot two movies in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
I've posted two movies in Southern Ireland.
Right.
And I posted Sunrise in Northern Ireland. So I've done a lot of work on the island of Ireland. 3 American movies.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? I shot One Way in Georgia, but all the post was done in Dublin.
Yeah.
And I fought for that because Windmill Lane are so amazing. And I wanted to protect those movies and keep control of them and stuff. So, yeah, that's the truth. So now it's branching out into South Africa, London, Budapest, Istanbul. I'll probably do the post in London. Maybe, I don't know. I'd love to do some post in LA. I think there's an editor here, a really good editor. He just there's a movie coming out called Land of Bad with Russell Crowe and Liam Hemsworth. It's part of the group that I'm in, like with Highland Fun. I just saw it at AFM. It's great. I really liked it. Will Eubank is the director. He did a couple of studio movies and stuff. I really loved it. Anyway, the editor, Todd Miller, cut that. And my manager knows him, and he did some polish work on One Way. And I'd love to work with Todd. It was super. We talked extensively about Cape Point, the next movie I'm doing. But because what I did with that, when I got back here in LA in September, is I immediately went into polishing the script. And I talked to several editors as I'm doing a polish on the script, because they're the ones who are they're the writers too at the end. So I really worked Cape Point. And what was refreshing or gratifying is another financial entity were going to back it, and then they didn't. So we moved it to Highland, who've done my first two movies, and they read the script and they loved it.
Yeah.
That's the polish we did. And it's like, it's good because I've never done so much work on working on a script, but I think it's vital as a filmmaker to do that, to really make it your own. And the truth is, my experience is and I didn't do it with this next movie, but anytime I've gone to the original writers to work with on revising, they don't want to do it. They're out. They don't want to touch what they think is perfect. And that's why you end up bringing in other people.
Well, there are very rarely is there a writer who can write something and it be perfect. I mean,
but there's very few that can rewrite their own stuff.
Well, that too,
because they've written a blueprint,
right?
But it's like you can get an actor come in and they have notes and they want to change it. Now Brian, who wrote Zone, was very accommodating on Zone, and I let him talk to. There was a real collaboration there with the actors and Brian and myself. But One Way, I didn't go to the actors. I did a couple of runs with the writer, and I could see that they were just like, ticking the boxes. And I'm like, okay. And then when we got Guy and Alex, and we're like, okay, this is go. Ronan did a pass. Like I said, okay, can you make and it was like he did his thing, and rather than get into the whole, I was like, okay, it needs further work, but we'll just take it over, because I just think they get too close to it. Because being a screenwriter is different than being a writer of novels.
Right.
I mean, it's a collab. You're now with these smaller movies, a lot of them originated in the writer's mind. So they're like, oh my God, it's my baby. It's like, you know, and but it has to go through a process, and that with the films, the director is the final author, so all the criticisms of Sunrise will be my fault, and all the positives will be my fault. Same with any movie. So
it's interesting
with theater, it's not the director, it's the playwright. And with television, it's not the director, it's the showrunner, and it's the creator. And with advertising, it's not the director, it's the creative director and the creative team. So film is the only medium where it's the director is really the king. And even when it's a sequel to a studio movie that's had 14 writers and 20 producers, and the director gets removed, well, DJ, do your director's cut, get out, bye, and had 10 editors.
Yeah.
If it fails, it's the director's fault.
Right.
Because it's a film.
Yeah.
Like my brother Stuart he was a director as well, and he did Executive Decision, was his first movie.
Oh yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Then he decided, because you had Heat, but he picked the sequel to The Fugitive.
Oh yeah.
Bad idea.
Yeah.
Then he ended up with his last assignment was a Star Trek movie. He doesn't even like Star Trek 10. So that's not, but again, you're the director of the film. Yeah. So it's your fault whether it rises or falls. So regardless if it's a sequel, a studio movie, an independent movie, whatever. Whereas if you're an episodic director and you've done season 2, episode, block, whatever, you get away with the stuff. You know, you show up, you deliver, you don't piss off the talent.
Because generally the series the continuity will be the same because it generally is the same
If you
people
want,
behind the scenes.
yeah. Now there is like, which I'd be interested in, is doing pilots where you set a whole tone, and then as a DGA director, you would get a slice if that went to series and multiple series. You get it's huge.
Yeah.
So, but that I think has changed a lot though, because with streaming, there's so much content now, and they just get one director to do the whole limited series or whatever. So
yeah, I don't even get me started on how there's so much stuff now that it's really thinned out. I think it was David Chase that basically commented on the 25th anniversary of The Sopranos, where now we're peak TV or whatever it is kind of over, and now it's a lot of stuff, and a lot of it's meaningless. You know, and it's just I mean I try to watch some of these new series, and it's like they all think that they have something, and they don't have anything, and you know, what do you hear? You hear one, you know, it gets one season, maybe two, and they're like, the two is the lifeline, and if you can't do it by the second, then you're over. You know,
I see that the new True Detective with Jodie Foster, is that what season 4 is getting huge buzz.
The first episode's really good, which I wasn't gonna watch it until it was over so I could binge the whole thing, but last Sunday I couldn't sleep, so I'm like, I'll watch it. It's good, but I'm cautiously optimistic. Let's say that.
Yeah. Well, listen. I want to hear what you think of Sunrise.
Well, I'll have to tell you when when I see it.
And then when you talk to Joe Carnahan, who I don't know, but obviously I'm a fan of his work, and he works with has worked with the same group as I have. But you get him to tell you about Not Without Hope, and it's
well, I'm eager for that's why I'm eager for
when it comes out or whatever,
one of his films to come out.
It's just like, because making these movies can be, every single one of them is a burst. It's a trial by fire. You think, I thought with the next movie, it's done. I said, it's cool. We don't, but there's always something.
That's the movie industry. It's notorious for being like that.
And you just got to keep going and going. The resilience and the drive is nonstop, and you got to keep going. It's like nobody's gonna. Well, I don't know. I mean, that's happened. Yeah, I've gotten emails and phone calls, or is Andrew available to go and do this movie? Blah blah blah. But that's cool. But then they didn't pan out in the end, and. But then you're just running for hire. And you're going to be judged on that the same way as any other movie you do. So it's like, you have to be careful and make sure you have sufficient amount of control over what you do. Because if you don't, you're going to be blamed for it if it doesn't work.
Do you kind of, I mean, we're about the same age, so we grew up on the people that would make a movie a year, pretty much. People like Walter Hill. But it was always with like somebody like Walter Hill, even though not every film of his may be as awesome as another, you knew it was a Walter Hill movie, basically. Maybe a couple of, I think there was one where he took his name off of it, but
I mean, somebody compared one way to a Walter Hill movie from the 70s, like with Bruce. It'd be like a Walter Hill movie with Bruce Dern and Warren Oates or something. That was pretty cool. Did you see, when you saw Sunrise, the trailer, did you see a connection with the filmmaking of the other movies?
I mean, there's something about it, but I want to reserve fully until I see the film. But
I think Sunrise, I think personally, I've made quite an advancement. Sunrise as a filmmaker, even though it's getting criticized, rightly so, that the script should have been more polished before it was shot. but there's so much good in Sunrise. That's more, it's a progression for me as a filmmaker that wasn't even in One Way. One Way as a whole, I think, worked quite well, very well, and it worked. But there's some real progress, I think, with Sunrise.
Well, I'm sure part of you want, you know, you've got ideas, but you also have a budget, and you have to sometimes
Yeah.
scale
Well,
back what
as
you
you said,
want.
like these directors from the 70s to 80s, and also I grew up with British directors like John Irvin,
Yeah.
and then there's John Frankenheimer, or there's
Yeah,
like
Frankenheimer, right?
the cop movies like a John Frankenheimer movie. So I'm talking to Millennium about maybe doing it with them. We'll see. They want to do a movie with me, and who's done the movies with Martin Campbell. They do Expendables and
Yeah.
London Has Fallen and all this, and it's a good stepping stone into major studios. Like, I don't know, we'll see with Lionsgate. Lionsgate can always, with a grindstone, which they did with Fall, they take it over and put it out wide. So
Yeah.
we're really, James Harris, the producer of Cape Point, is like, look, this is going to be a theatrical movie. So meaning that we got to execute it with no quick schedule. It has to be done properly. There's no
Right.
running and gunning. You know, it's
Right.
it's contained, but it's expansive, and it's got a very contained cast, but it's a strong script, you know, the thing is the characters are very normal. You know, they're very everyday people in extraordinary situations. So
Right.
actors can be like, particularly the name, I think, could be like, I want to play, you know, a woman or a man, or I want to play someone without a leg and all this. You always want something. So, but what I was saying, yeah, like to just keep making those movies, you know, like the guy John Irvin that I did Widow's Peak. That's how I saw a film director. I was 17 and I was on his set. Not Miranda, Mia Farrow and Natasha Richardson and Joan Plowright. So that was my first experience on a movie set was him. That's a real film director he's actually lives in Kensington. I bumped into him a couple of times in London. I bumped into him and I should have stopped and say, do you remember? Not that he would remember me, but I should have like got his, anyway. So there was him. We talked about Martin Campbell. I love even Rennie Harlan, these guys that come back, Simon West, they keep working.
Yeah.
That to me is what is the name of the game. You keep working. It's like I have serious respect for that over decades, you know. And
Simon did the first Expendables, right?
He did the second one.
Second one, that was that was really good. The first two are the only ones that it's not generally my kind of thing, but you know, but the first two were definitely the better of the series. The fourth one just got nominated for a bunch of Razzies. So
I know one of the writers on anyway, so he just keep making, you know, it's like it's a process, you know. You need
filmmaking is so different now than it used to be too, but you know, it's very, you know, I get the feeling from talking to a bunch of filmmakers that, you know, it's the producers, the money men's world or the studio's world more than it is the directors now. But you have these weird moments where something like reason why something like Oppenheimer was a big deal to me, even though I've been kind of up and down on my liking of Nolan as a filmmaker, for him to turn around $1 billion movie based on $100 million budget that was 3 hours long, it was all adult material. It wasn't pandering in any way to any. For that movie to be that kind of a behemoth should be the groundswell for giving more power back to filmmakers. But, you know, will it? I don't know.
Well, as I said, like, no matter how big or small the movie is, if you don't have control as a filmmaker over the films you're making, then you're not making a film. You're just, you know, because that film is like making a film, the author is the director.
Yeah.
That's a fact. And if
Yeah.
if it becomes like a super producer or a studio or or star, it's
Right.
over. It's
Do
just
you
that's not how it works.
do you
So
know early on, by if you say you're dealing with a producer slash financier, do you know early on, like based on how you talk to them, whether or not you think you could, do you usually use that as like a warning sign sort of thing, like something doesn't seem like it's going to work for me working with this person?
yeah, I mean, I've kind of kept it even with this next movie. As I said, one of the guys has produced the other movies and finance, like,
Yeah.
so you just keep it in that zone. There have been times I've talked to other people, and then but I keep this network,
Yeah.
who know me and know what I do, and again, look, if something comes in, sure, but you get a sense. Even with the spy movies with one of the producers of Zone, whatever. I don't know. It's like you like to keep it in that world,
Yeah.
It's a small, like, and it's funny, it's like, yeah, I'm delighted. Like, we got the domestic deal from Lionsgate Grindstone, as I said, because one of the producers from the Cop movie had a very good relationship there.
Yeah.
And we need to close that deal fast because we've had to finance this movie between film markets so fast. And I'm really happy that, it's pretty cool. Lionsgate was very close to financing Zone as a full all-in deal years ago. And Lionsgate, Screen Gems are the kind of studio. Screen Gems is part of Sony that I would like see myself making films with, as a studio. So it's good. And I'm glad that I was able to make something pretty classy.
Yeah.
Some of Grindstone's work is pretty hard genre stuff.
Yeah.
So, but they're trying to up their game, and who knows? Lionsgate may end up being the domestic on Cape Point. Who knows? We'll see.
Right.
They're trying to hold it open. But
Yeah.
what they did with Fall was it was a Grindstone Lionsgate domestic on Fall. Just the two girls in the tower, they get stuck in the tower.
Right. Yeah.
And Lionsgate said, this is really good. We're going to put it out wide, which costs a lot of money. But they did it, and they did well with it. So
Yeah.
that's a big deal. So I never thought that they would ever do that with Sunrise. It's far too niche, but
Yeah.
they can see maybe, look, this is a filmmaker that's classy and, he's got chops, hopefully.
Yeah.
No,
No, and
so,
every film you make, you improve on things, for
yeah,
for your own creativity.
yeah,
You know more about how to manage things. You work with people more, so
yeah,
you're just, it's about, experience sometimes is the better thing.
yeah, for sure.
It's sometimes not everybody's a wonderkin with their first film. Sometimes, it's like
Well, that's what some people expect, and it's
yeah,
ridiculous.
nobody's
I mean,
born a filmmaker outright,
the amount of
necessarily.
people that have made really good first movies and then never make another movie it's insane.
Yeah.
Because they get lost in the ego and stuff. I just see it as a craft, a really complex craft, but
Yeah.
you also have to have a point of view.
Yeah.
And then you learn over time
Yeah.
how to express that point of view through that machine.
Yeah.
And it's great, it's wonderful. So I gotta go, but
Okay.
let's do you
Yeah.
write reviews or
No, I don't. Unless I haven't written one in a while. Last one I wrote was for Babylon because I went and saw it in the theater and I loved it and everybody else was shitting on it, so I figured I'd throw my hat in the ring for that one. But I don't write as many reviews, but I will definitely get the link out to you. It's going to post this Friday.
Cool,
So,
man. And let me know what you think of the movie.
I will do so. I'll be in contact with you about something else too, but be on the lookout for that.
All right,
man.
I look forward to talking to you about the next one.
It's same for me. You have a good one, Andrew.
You too, buddy. Bye,
All right.
man.
Bye.